There we go. Hey everyone, Ravi Singh from REMAX Hallmark Realty. Thank you very much for joining me for this Facebook Live and Instagram Live talk. This is actually not my typical state of the market Facebook Live episode, but this is actually one that is a little bit more so intriguing for some. This is actually my predictions for 2020. And some of these predictions that I'm going to make are going to be very specific, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not these come true over the next 12 months. So without further ado, I'd like to mention some of the things that I think will be happening over 2020 as we observe the real estate market in Toronto. So the first thing that I think that we will see, and I think that this is definitely going to happen. I'm just going to say hi to Daryl Gomez, who I see online here, and Auntie Janet and Linda. I think the short-term rental market will actually suffer tremendously due to some sort of major regulation announcement. The reason why I feel this way is short-term rentals is sort of a niche play in the Toronto real estate market. And those who are doing things like Airbnb or doing any type of short-term rental, they will deal with the risk-reward ratio. And what I mean by that is short-term rental works well for those who are responsible and putting in the time. Those who are negligible are going to ruin it for the others. So let's be observing regarding that and see if there's any regulation that happens regarding short-term rental. The next thing that I think I'd like to mention that I think is going to be very important, hey Susan, nice to see you, is Toronto condo parking spots will see ridiculously new highs in the new year. And what I mean by that is we're going to be dealing with condo parking spots that will be in excess of $500, maybe even $700 or $800 for a parking spot. We're going to see a massive shortage as more and more people who are dwelling in the city are either faced with the decision of not having a parking spot, or they're faced with the decision of paying a premium for the scarcely available parking spots in their building. The third thing that I think is going to happen is interest rates will stay relatively low for the first 6 months of 2020. I think that there will be interest rate changes in the second half of the year. I think especially if we face a net export issue with the US. And I think for the first half of the year, if you are thinking about locking in, I would advise that that would be the time to do so. I'm not an expert on this, I'm just offering my opinion, but I do see that with the US and some of the trade that is happening, pressure on the interest rate market. I do think that the banks will be very credit free and wanting to issue credit in the January to April portion of the year. So let's see what happens there. The next one that I wrote down here, and I think that this is pretty interesting, there will be a strong increase, above average increase in prices for Durham starter homes. What I mean by that is your condo townhouse or your condo apartment or your freehouse starting starting townhouse in the Durham region will see an extremely strong level of appreciation. A lot of authorities, including CMHC and REMAX, have said 6 to 6.7% appreciation for the GTA over the board. I think, for example, townhouses in a place like Boxgrove or in Markham or West Rouge in Pickering or some of these other areas, we're going to see an above average rate of increase. The next point that I'd like to make here, we are going to see self-storage rates across the city, but in particular in the downtown core, increase tremendously. And that simply has to do with the fact that self-storage is becoming more and more in demand as dwelling units become less and less large. As condos shrink their footprint, the need for self-storage will continue to increase. That's inevitable. The next one that I wanted to talk about here, and this is kind of an interesting one for me, it's an observation, especially with the millennial generation, is that realtors have often had pressure on their commission. I don't think that that will be the main place that realtors get pressure in the 2020, the new year. I think it'll be more so on their accountability and their value story. Dealing with young professionals in particular, they're going to want you to deal with them at a pace and at a level of knowledge that gives them value. Where realtors may have had longer response times, or where they may not have had the hyperlocal expertise, or where they may have not brought enough value to the listing story, that's going to be the pressure. And we're going to see a lot of people say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me? And I think that that's really going to be an interesting thing that happens in 2020. I don't mind paying you, you just better be worth it. The next trend that I think is going to happen more so in 2020 is we're going to see baby boomers continue to stay in their larger 1980s residential property. And the way that I think that this is going to happen is I think a lot of baby boomers are going to cohabitat with their children and or their grandchildren. For example, my parents, when I was growing up in the 90s, they had 50-foot frontage, detached 4-bedroom home, 2-story, typical sort of suburban home in both Mississauga and Scarborough. Those types of homes will continue to be there will be co-living happening between multiple generations in these homes as the interdependence between both generations continues. The next point that I'd like to make, and I think that this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I do think that this is going to happen in 2020, is the far suburbs will see significantly less demand from 9 to 5 commuters, and the near suburbs will see a lot of buy and reno happening. What I mean by that is if we take a look at what's closest to the 416 or suburbs like Etobicoke and Scarborough, we're going to see people migrate there for the shorter commute time, and we'll see perhaps less demand for new construction further out. Places like, bear with me for a second, I just had a call come in. Ended that. So places like Bowmanville, places like Stouffville, places like Milton, places like Burlington, where they've been commuter havens because of the GO train, you'll see a lot of people put less value on that and put more value on being that much closer to the city. I think that this will be an interesting trend, especially as people buy detached 1980s and 1990s homes on large lots and renovate them. We're going to see this continue to grow. And then the last topic that I'd like to mention here, and this may be a 2020 thing or it may not. It might be a 2021 or 2022 interesting trend in the GTA real estate market. There is the next sort of gentrifying hipster community that becomes the new place to buy, and we always see this come out. And we see this come out, in Toronto Life magazine or Blog TO. The most gentrifying neighborhood where we will see a lot of young professionals migrate to and continue to move to and continue to drive up values is going to be Scarborough. Watch for it, mark my words. We're going to see places like Wexford, Maryville. We're going to see places like Birchcliff and Cliffside, and where I myself live, West Rouge, Port Union. We're going to see these neighborhoods continue to drive up and up and up in demand as they sort of get engulfed by people who crave a more urban dwelling. And especially as places like Midtown, Davisville, Leaside, the Beach, Leslieville, Riverdale become more and more difficult to afford. So with that being said, these are my predictions for 2020. I thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate everybody who reached out. over the past couple of days to wish me a happy birthday. That was really, really nice to see, and I appreciate it all. 2020 is going to be an incredible year for Connexus Group, my team, and myself, and all of us who are, working. And we thank you. We thank you very much for your referrals. We thank you very much for your advocacy, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Enjoy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And as always, anything that you need related to the real estate market, I'm happy to talk. Thanks very much, and bye for now.